Welcome, guys. F1, FOM, FIA have all watched my last video and they've said we need to make some tweaks to the regulations. And let's see what they've done. Just quickly, guys, if you're new, please hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy the video, hit the like as well. So the FIA and F1 and all their stakeholders have agreed to make 4 changes in 4 areas of the sport, of the regulations, which, I mean, I'm not sure how far they could have gone, but we'll go and take a look at each one. So they've made changes to the qualifying, changes in the race, changes to the race starts, and to wet tyre conditions or wet race conditions as well. So they've made some changes there. We've not seen or had to see any of that yet, but hopefully, and we do normally get a couple of wet races this season, it might mean we actually definitely will get some racing on track, hopefully, and help with visibility, but we'll go through them as we get to them. And the key element that they have changed, and which has been the ear of every F1 fan, journalist, race driver, they've gone and made small tweaks. I'm not sure how far they could have gone. The cars are the cars. There's not a massive amounts they can do to tweak them, but they've helped or tried to help with some of the regulation changes. Some things we've already seen already. So with qualifying, they've said that they're going to reduce the maximum permitted recharge amount. So the amount that they can recharge up down from 8 megajoules down to 7 megajoules. We've seen this in Japan. It didn't make a huge difference in Japan to the qualifying lap at all. That is basically aimed to reduce the harvesting that we see around the lap. And it should, in theory, reduce the super clipping that they've said to just 2 to 4 seconds a lap. 2 to 4 seconds a lap sounds quite a lot. And if we've seen, and like we've seen in Japan, they'll still be doing that through 130R Eau Rouge when we get to it. Some of the magnificent corners around the F1 circuits. Silverstone might be one that particularly suffers with some, great fast corners. And if they're lifting and coasting and trying to recharge batteries through them, as Fernando Alonso called them, recharge stations, we might see that, because 2 and 4 seconds is probably what they're doing now at the moment. They've also said the peak super clip power has increased to 350 kilowatts. So it was 250 before. It's increased a further 100. This should reduce, in theory, time spent recharging the car, and reduce some of the driver's workload on trying to, energy manage as well during the qualifying lap. That's going to be applied in the race as well. So it's not just a qualifying change. That one, that will cross over into qualifying. So we'll see what difference, if any, that will make, that we can see that is noticeable. The number of events also that they will introduce to have the alternative lower energy limits will be increased from 8 venues to 12. So they've probably picked out another 4 circuits clearly where they think that we'll probably need to introduce this lower limit, like they did for the Japan, where they said it's dropping from 8 to 7. Now, with 7 being the maximum now, will that mean we'll go from 7 down to 6? Who knows? Watch this space, because clearly the 26 regulations are going to be ever evolving throughout the season to try and get some sort of happy medium with what we can with these cars. I think they didn't expect it to be as big of a problem as it has turned out to be. Like many fans, what Max Verstappen said in 2023, we all sort of said, let's hope it's not going to be like that. And this is, we're talking 3 years down the line. The technology and the way it might implement should, in theory, change, but it clearly hasn't. Let's see what they can do in a year where they're actually racing and working with these regulations. Let's hope there's more changes. I'm not sure what regulation changes that they can do to help this, but they've done probably what they can at the moment within sort of refined margins of probably not going too far, where we now see like a decent regulation change 3 races into the season, and cars and teams have developed cars to the regulation spec, despite raising concerns as many others have pre-season. And obviously they're saying they've been told the rules are the rules, but 3 races in, because it doesn't suit FIA and F1, they can't just quickly change things. So we may see another step to this, maybe in the summer break. Rumors are that that's when the next review of these regulations will take place. So let's see what happens with that one. In terms of the races, they've said they've improved the race safety and consistency of performance issues. So the massive issues that we've seen, or the big issue that came to a head really in Japan, was with the Ollie Berman and Franco Colapinto issue, where we're seeing the speed differences between the cars, and the huge differences, meaning, any small flinch from Colapinto like he did would mean Berman's reaction speeds would have to be that much faster because of the speed differences between the two. They're trying to limit that and stop the kind of accidents that we've seen between the pair of them. So they've said that the maximum power now available for the boost is now capped to 150 kilowatts. But the interesting element that they've put here is all the car's current power level at activation, if higher. So I'm not sure what that means there, but I don't know what that part of it means, because they've put that in brackets. And therefore, apparently that will limit the sudden performance differentials between the two cars. So the boost, basically they've thought is either probably too strong. So the limit that they can now boost to is 150 kilowatts. The MGUK deployment is maintained at 350 kilowatts in the acceleration zones, but that's basically from the corner exit into the braking point of probably the main straights and the overtaking zones. So you still get the higher limit there, but for the rest of the lap, it's only going to be 250 kilowatts that they can use in the rest of the lap. So similar to probably what we had with the DRS zones, we might get more demarcated zones of these are overtake zones now on circuits. And then in the rest of the lap, they can use the limited kilowatt power. So, I mean, again, maybe that's just so we don't get huge differences in sort of corner sequences where they might catch drivers out, or we'll get what was kind of exciting a little bit about this regulation was that we do get racing or overtaking in corners that we probably usually wouldn't. We didn't see an awful lot of that. We did see a little bit of that, though, in the first 3 races. And I kind of was interested to see how that would pan out for different race venues, but I guess they've sort of addressed or tried to address that to limit the safety concerns. So hopefully it doesn't make too much of an impact on that side of things in terms of the racing. Clearly something was needed to be done in terms of the closing speeds between the two cars, and that's really what they have done there. In terms of the race starts, they've said now they've got a low power start detection system that's been developed. These will all be in place for Miami, so let's see how that one pans out. So effectively, where they see the cars come to the grid and they've got the low power in terms of they're expecting them to have a not a very good start because the battery system is not quite up to scratch. I'm assuming the car will flash in some sort of way to alert the drivers around them that these guys are potentially going to have a slow start, which will be really interesting at the starts to see how that pans out. I kind of really hope that happens very, very early on. Probably definitely in Miami. That would be great to see how that works, because the drivers will then also, instead of just looking at the lights, if you've got a guy just to your right, light started flashing, and you think he's going to be easy sittings, but he then gets a semi-decent half start, you've thrown another element in the mix of a surprise that, expecting him to get a crap start, and you're then looking at other potential drivers to pass or danger elements around you to protect yourself down into that turn 1. but then they get half decent start because the system wasn't quite accurate. That might really mess with people and play with how things go. There's also an automatic MGUK deployment that will be triggered as well now to ensure that the minimum level of acceleration there is a minimum level of acceleration from the start to mitigate the start related risks without introducing any sporting advantage. Now that is the key part to it, is that just so that we don't see someone effectively really slow off the start, kind of like what we've seen was Pierre Gasly, which Franco Colapinto dodged in Australia. So I think they're hoping to avoid something along that side of it, so they'll get like what's a half decent start though. That's another element in the air. We'll see how that pans out when we get, I'm sure we'll get someone in Miami to do that, and probably the Audis, in fact, because they've had the worst starts, haven't they? Lost 4 places on average of any team, have the Audis down into turn 1 of the race start. So it could help them off the race starts. Obviously, I've got the visual systems, flashing lights at the rear and the side of effective cars with the slow start system. Also, they've said that there'll be an energy restart, a reset of the energy counter at the start of the formation lap. Apparently, there was some there's been a system inconsistency on this, and I think this is really where you have the start finish line and the timing line for the end of the lap, where there's sometimes a gap between the two, and they would say that the start line was, for example, the MGUK or the battery, where it would restart from that line, and so cars that were either just past it or just before it on certain grids, where that line wasn't exactly at one point where everybody would cross it, therefore the reset system would work for some and not for others. I think that's what they're really looking at on that side of things, because otherwise I did think that it effectively just started at the start of the formation lap, but clearly not on that one. In terms of the wet tyres, they've said that the tyre blanket temperatures for the intermediate tyres have been increased. And is this the part where they've said we've listened to the drivers, because this is what the drivers have talked about an awful lot, feedbacking in order to sort of improve the initial grip on tyre performance in wet conditions. So they won't be too cold to try and get these tyres up to working temperature. Let's see how that flows. And there's also a maximum ERS deployment that will be reduced, limiting torque and improving car control in low grips. They didn't give any figures on how much that reduction might be and what that might look like, and I guess that might vary from team to team. They've also said there will be a rear light systems. They've been simplified with clearer and more consistent visual cues to improve visibility and reaction time for following drivers in poor conditions. All these have been agreed unanimously by all the stakeholders. That was key and probably one of the very first lines of this statement from F1, the FIA. So everybody has agreed to this. There's nobody that can say, yeah, we're not really sure about that. I wasn't a fan of it. I mean, I'm sure they'll have teams say like cop outs to say, oh yeah, I didn't really agree with that, but we kind of had to, just to see what, get the regulations over the line and see what works for everybody. But we will be implemented from Miami in the first race. Some of them I don't expect we'll see very soon. Obviously, the wet tyre condition stuff, we won't see much of that very soon. In terms of the qualifying, we didn't see that have much of an impact in Japan. Might be helped by the extra 100 kilowatts that they can now have. Well, who knows on that front. So still quite skeptical. Clearly, I am about these regulation changes. How far will they go? Obviously, we've seen that 1 kilojoule drop in Japan, and I don't think it made much difference at all on that side. But like I said at the start, what can they do? The cars are the cars, and they've spent years developing these engines, and they're not just going to drop them 3 races in. And is this just a formula that we're going to kind of have to live with a little bit? Either until the car and the engineers get on top of these cars, and they're expecting a lot of team members were expecting to do that by race like 5 or 6. We'll see teams and engineers get on top of these regulations. Obviously, we've now missed 2 of those races. So it'll be a little bit later into the season. And I think that's why, hence, there is talks or rumours already potentially of another review of the regulations during the summer break. So something to keep an eye on, that even if these don't work, they may go a step further. We'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, interesting. At least they've made some changes. They clearly know and have identified there's problems with the regulations as they stand. Let's hope they work for Miami. But there we have it. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. As always, see you on the next one.